So if you love books at one point or another, I can guarantee you have had a little filthy little fantasy about owning your own bookshop. So have I. But I've decided that financially, that's not going to happen for a while. Logistically, I don't know if I run a small business already, and it's already a little much for my little creative brain to run something bigger. I don't know. But I've realised I have this amazing resource of all these books that I own, some of which I've read, some of which I haven't read. And I always think, like, if I did have a bookshop, like, what would be different to other bookshops? And I know that I'd want to organise the books into these incredibly niche categories. And I started noticing, the more I looked at the books that I have collected over the years, that there are themes. Like, there are certain themes coming through that aren't just genres, like horror, crime, fantasy, not those kind of genres, much more specific ones. And I wondered if I actually started organising my bookshelves that way, one, it would be much more fun to look at. Two, I might be able to fulfill a little bit of my future fantasy today by getting the satisfaction of organising my bookshelves that way. And three, it might motivate me to read books in clusters, like the books that I haven't got round to. Are they connected? And can I have like a month or two of like reading within a theme? I'm also always running read-alongs on my Patreon Discord, the Gumption Club. And this summer, I thought it'd be really cool. Instead of picking a book to read together, we could pick a theme, and then we can all like read around the theme and compare notes, and you can get new recommendations of what to read and then read I don't know, I think that would be cool and like bring up different discussions rather than everybody reading the same thing. So to get some ideas for that and to fulfill my own dreams, I thought I would take you along today while I reorganise my bookshelves like I own my own bookshop and I'm choosing the categories. And maybe we'll get a bit crafty at the end and make myself a sign. Oh, that would be lovely. Right, I'll show you what we're working with. So these are my bookshelves. They are completely jammed and double stacked. At the moment, there's barely any rhyme or reason to it. Fiction is in with non-fiction. Read is in with unread. So I'm not breaking any carefully constructed system. This is clear chaos anyway. So if I create more chaos, that's fine, right? I wonder if some stuff will emerge that I won't realise that I've been buying. Because another thing is, if you are a lover of books and you go into a lot of bookshops, you start rebuying like this, they're like books on the same theme, and you might not realise until you organise it like this. So I'm interested to see what kind of themes come up. I know there will be like some kind of Aussie and witchy section. I know that there will probably be like some kind of food section that isn't just recipes, like the philosophy of food. I feel like I've got a few books on that. But what else? I'm not sure. Should we find out? Let's start. Okay, I've been going for 3 hours and I think it's fair to say things have escalated. I won't give you a tour yet of all of the different piles, but some interesting things that have come up. One, I own a lot of poetry, and usually poetry, like a lot of people don't really write on a theme. They just write like it's a body of work. And the same with like collections, short story collections, people's complete works, those kind of things. Like they don't have, I regret to say, as much of a theme as I'd like. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to push all the books that don't have a theme to the back of the bookshelves, and then put all of the books that will have a theme and be part of this fictional bookshop on the front of the shelf. So because my shelves are double stacked, irrelevant, relevant. Sorry, writers, you should have made your books more specific. I'm already noticing gaps where I thought I owned a lot. For instance, so far, these are all the books that I own that are set in the Midlands. Good. Actually, Tidal Zone is. Oh, I can't remember. I've also got Tidal Zone, but like that's it. And I thought I was like doing well on collecting books about the place that I live and was born in. So that's interesting. Other patterns that have emerged. This pile, this big one here that's almost as big as some of the... That's my train books pile. I didn't realise it was so important to me. But the pile speaks for itself. There's also been some really sweet pairings between books that I hadn't put together before. But I have a Girl Gang section, which is Little Women but it's also The Bandit Queens and Bad Girls by Jacqueline Wilson, and then Nell Dunn's interviews called Talking to Women. As predicted, there is a food but not recipes section called Eating is Complicated, which does include books like Ravenous, which is about our food systems and how we fix them for the future climate crisis, Ultra Processed People, Fat is a Feminist Issue, Eat Up by Ruby Tando, but it also has some interesting fiction contributions like The Vegetarian, Kat Dunn's Hungerstone, and this really cute book that I got recently called The Restaurant of Lost Recipes, which is a restaurant where they construct beloved dishes from the memories of their customers, creating a connection to cherish moments from the past. Adorable. So I like that while like eating and food is like a complicated, sometimes depressing topic, there are also some really sweet fiction books in there dealing with it as well. So if you wanted to like read them together, you get like the gut punch, but then also a little cuddle. And then finally, another thing that excites me is that there are books that have crossover, right? So I'm thinking that when I arrange them on the shelves, I will try and have one or two bridge books that are like bilingual. They speak to both genres. And then, why am I getting so excited? It's gonna be so good. And then I will arrange the topics not by like alphabetically or what like makes sense together, but more just like the themes of the books will flow into each other. For example, The Reader on the 627, which is about a man whose job it is to pulp, to destroy books in like a factory, but he's really sad about it. So every morning on his way to work on the train, he like takes pages from books that were about to be destroyed and like reads them aloud to passengers. So good. That can sit between my books hyperfocus category, which is books about books, and then my train category. I know. Another example, poems about knitting can sit between poetry and knitting. So it will go knitting, poetry, and then when poetry's finished, it will go to Sylvia Plath's Tomato Soup Cake, which is a book of recipes from famous authors' favourite recipes, and then it'll go from poetry into food. How satisfying is this? The answer is very satisfying. And if that is not the answer, then this is not the channel for you. Okay, I am going to try and finish off my categories before it gets dark. I think I'm like more than halfway through. I think it will be fine. Let's keep going. Okay, I think I'm just about ready to start putting the books back on the shelves and working out what order all these categories should go in. But I thought first I should take you on a little tour of some of the like the working titles for the categories as we go through them. So here's what I've done to my living room floor. Unexpectedly large piles include The Death Cafe, which are books about grief, for which apparently I'm starting a little collection. Other favourite categories include this very small category that's just called Leave Him, and it includes these three books. Obsession and Addiction was an interesting one because it includes political stuff, but also some cults, some things about like fundamentalism, the Stephen Sondheim musical about people who try to assassinate presidents, a poetry book solely based on the Twilight Zone, a book about losing people to addiction, a book about a woman who's obsessed with her violin, and a book about the Jane Austen fandom. That pile has got range. This one's a mix of self-help and essays, and it's called How to Deal with Other People. It's got a book that I just finished that is brilliant called Bad Friend by Michelle Elman. And what I like about this pile is there is some kind of like classic how to deal with life kind of like stuff that you'd find in the self-help section, but it also includes systemic stuff like this book called Together, The Rituals and Pleasures and Politics of Cooperation. It's kind of like a mix of the micro and macro that you wouldn't find in a normal bookshop. But like those two subjects are clearly connected, so why aren't they sitting next to each other on the bookshelves? Another theme I saw emerging from my bookshelves that I didn't realise was there was just called Ejector Seat, which means the catalyst of the book is people leaving behind their normal lives and just trying to disappear
somewhere else. We've got really new stuff like All Fours, but then also this book by Margaret Atwood called Lady Oracle, Orbital, because they're just flinging themselves into space. If you want to go deep under the sea, we've got Julia Armfield's Our Wives Under the Sea, and even a classic in there, The Awakening by Kate Chopin. So I really like this pile. Maybe this is like something that I would like to read more of, like a secret hidden genre that I didn't realise I had been reading through. Now, before we start stacking the books back on the bookshelves, I wonder if you can learn anything with a tape measure. So for the inquiring minds, I own 30 centimetres of train books, 34 centimetres of what I'm calling touch grass books, which is a mixture of like nature writing and nature manifestos, 29 centimetres of books just about yearning, 45 centimetres of books about clothing and also how to make clothing. But predictably and by far the largest is this category, which is 47 centimetres high. And that category is biscuits, then revolution. Right, enough procrastinating. It's time to get these books back on the shelves. So last night, when I tried to get all of the books, all of my beautiful categories, back on the bookshelves that all fitted when I was just before I took them off, I looked behind me and I realised there were still 2 piles of books that didn't go back on the bookshelf. And I just stood there for ages staring at them like, why is this happening? But then I remembered, I used to be a bookseller. I have this in me. I know I can solve this problem. So I spent a little while reshuffling, recalibrating, reimagining the tiny spaces between books to see if I could optimise them before I was brutally attacked by a feminist text. Herland is supposed to be a utopia. It was anything but. So then I took a little rage break, and this morning before I started work, I did a bit more rearranging and managed to get them all back on the shelves. However, before I do the big reveal, I feel like it needs a little bit of a glow up, a little bit of pizzazz, a little bit of tinsel. So I'm just sitting here wondering what to do. Do I use my label maker? Do I buy a big neon sign off Etsy? Or do I use these and this and wherever I've got lying around and see if I can make some magic happen? I think I'm going to try that last option first. May or may not have stayed up till 10:30 at night last night, finishing off the details of my bookshop. But I think it's time to welcome my first customer. Oh, hello, my first customer. Do come in. I hope you brought your wallet. Now, welcome to Lena's extremely specific bookshop of particular delights, and I'm ready to delight you today. Come on over to the shelves. Now, you might have heard about this bookshop. It's quite unconventional, so I'm going to talk you through a little bit about how I've structured the shelves. Obviously, they're all very specific topics that I think link together in some way, so I've spent a lot of time thinking about how each section links to the next. Example, this first section is called That's Not How It Went, which is about revisionist history or retelling history correctly from a fiction and non-fiction perspective. Great examples of this include fiction books like The Good Man Jesus and the Scoundrel Christ and Charlotte, which retells Pride and Prejudice from Charlotte's perspective. The last book in this section is called Wifedom, and it is about how George Orwell's wife contributed a lot to his work but was never recognised, which leads us on most beautifully to the next section, which is called Leave Him, about women who are in relationships with toxic men, and that's literally the plot. Linking between those sections is obviously Twilight, which is about a woman who falls in love, well, a girl who falls in, a teenager, let's be real, falls in love with what we would traditionally call a monster, which conveniently leads us on to our next section, which is called Talent Schmalent, the first book in this section being Monsters by Claire Dederer, which is about how we treat talent and like monstrosity. So this whole section is questioning, what is talent? Should we respect people with talent? How do you get talent? Is it work or is it something you're born with? And conveniently, the last book in this section is Jonathan Livingston Seagull, which is about a very talented seagull, which conveniently leads on to our next section, which is called Get in the Sea, about books set on or in the ocean. The last book in this section is Be More Pirate, which is a book about how we need to harness the intelligence and the structures of piracy to get what we want from the high seas or like the rest of the world, basically. It's kind of about political revolution, which leads very deliciously into our next section, which is called Biscuits and Then Revolution. I'm getting too excited. I need to calm down. This is my greatest achievement to date, which leads us very conveniently into the next section, Biscuits and Then Revolution, which are all books about how to change the world. The last book in this section is, these are all Craig's books, so we had to move on. The last book in this section you'll see is How Bad Are Bananas? About the climate impact of the things that we buy, which leads on deliciously to Eating is Complicated, which are books about how complicated and emotional eating is. Quite a lot of those books too, but deliciously this book ends with a book by Kat Dunn called Hungerstone, which harks back to the tradition of vampires. Vampires and witches, they're quite linked, so this section is called Coven Reads, all the books about witches, including a classic, The Worst Witch, and also Lucy Jane Wood's Rewitched. This one ends, and I like this link very much. This one ends with some of my Wicked books, The Wizard of Oz, Wicked and Alfie, but I happen to have more than one copy of Wicked because of course I do. And the next section is actually loads of books that I think are linked by the idea of silence, like who is silenced, why people are silent. And so I put a Wicked book. The main thesis of Wicked is about silence. It's not about female friendship. I will link a video up there all about that. You can listen to me rant for 40 minutes about my opinions about that. But that is why Wicked belongs in the silence section. The last book in this section is The Animals in That Country, which is all about animals learning to talk after millennia of silence, which links greatly into this section, which is called Give Animals a Single Break. And it's just about how we abuse animals, whether we should eat animals or not, what we're doing to the animals in their natural environment. That's a whole section in itself, and it goes on for some time. It includes Virginia Woolf's book on dogs, and it ends with Shocked Earth, which is a book about farming during the climate crisis, which links greatly on to After the End, which are books about the end of the world as we know it. Ending in the Testaments by Margaret Atwood, which is about women fighting for their rights, which links very well into our next section, which is called Girl Gang, which includes lots of books on feminist utopias, but it also includes Bad Girls by Jacqueline Wilson and Little Women. You get the idea, but I just want to show you one more link, which is down here. Come on. We've got this section, which is called Leave Me Alone, books about people wanting to be left alone, essentially. And it ends with Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, which links amazingly into my next section, if I do say so myself. And the next section is called Yearning. And the first book in this section is love letters between Virginia Woolf and her lover, Vita Sackville West. Delicious. I love it's so satisfying. I've never had so much satisfaction rearranging my bookshelves. I could go on about this all day, but I hope you have enjoyed it. I really like the idea of reading books by theme and making them talk to each other, seeing which books you already own that are in conversation. It's not only like I've reignited my passion for all of the unread books I own and how they might link to the books I have read and like just reignited my interest in them, but it's also made me think about the read-alongs I host on Discord for my patrons in the Gumption Club. So far, we've been reading ascribed books that we've all voted on and we all read the same book, but I thought this summer it would be interesting instead to pick a theme, maybe conveniently one of these themes, seeing as I seem to own so many books on those topics, and read together, not exactly the same books, but read around the same theme. That way we can have a little group think and compare notes about what we learned from all the different books, compare how fiction relates to non-fiction, I just think it'd be really cool. So if you are already in the Gumption Club, head over to the Discord because we're going to be reading on a theme for the whole summer. I'm so excited. And if you're not part of the Gumption Club yet, and that kind of group reading with people across the world but with the same kind of mindset sounds delicious to you, I will leave a link below on how to join. I hope my silly little project has inspired you to make your dreams come true in a small half-ass way, even if they can't come true tomorrow. And I really feel like I fulfilled a dream doing this. And it's also made me realise like how little I need to buy new books right now. I'm so excited about the ones that I own, and I can't wait to spend the rest of the summer getting round to reading them. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, I think you might like one of these videos. And until next time, Frog Snog out.